Hello, friends, and welcome to the Being Formed podcast. My name is Adam Ormore. My wife, Rebecca, and I founded a ministry called LifePoint Resources about 2.5 years ago. Our ministry exists to provide Christ-centered soul care to everyone in need so that each and every person can enjoy the fullness of life with God in the kingdom now and forever. That's what we're about. We want to make sure that everyone who needs soul care will receive it, and that we'll be able to experience life with God today, not just waiting for eternity sometime far off. I like what John Ortberg titled one of his books, Eternity is Now in Session. We get to enjoy the fullness of life with God today. Our vision as a ministry is a highly relational community. And I think that this podcast, just now getting started, will hopefully form that community. We'll have conversations about Christian spiritual formation and soul care and just a relational and a reflective lifestyle. But we want to envision and we want to create a highly relational community of transforming people whose souls are set on being with Jesus and becoming people of love. If you're listening to this today, episode number 1, well, I hope that you are interested in being a part of this highly relational community. We formed this so that you don't have to be alone. Maybe you go to church somewhere. Maybe you are part of a small group. Maybe you're a ministry leader. Maybe you're someone on the mission field. Maybe you're a lead pastor or an associate pastor. No matter who you are or what you do, we just want you to find this as a hospitable place, a welcoming space for you to hear, to receive, to join in somehow into these conversations. We want to interview folks who are in the Christian spiritual formation world, in the soul care world, even kind of in the relational neuroscience world. And so we just have a big vision for what this podcast can become. But just really want you to know this podcast includes you. We want to do life with other like-minded people. We were not made to be alone. We were made by a relational God to be in relationship with God and to have right relationship with others and even with ourselves. And so we're going to talk a lot about what LifePoint looks like, our ministry, but mostly we want to just invite you into a conversation where you can be blessed, you can be encouraged, you can be strengthened, and you can begin to notice how is your soul and who are you becoming. We want to help you desire to be with Jesus more and more first, and then as an overflow of being with God, becoming a person of love, a person who loves God more fully, who loves our neighbors, and who even is able to love ourselves. So that's who we are. That's what we want to do. As I mentioned, we started this ministry about 2.5 years ago. At the time, I was still working with a ministry called Kids at Heart. That's a wonderful global ministry that impacts those who have a relationship and a responsibility to influence the lives of children, and it impacts people all over the world. I was able to meet and work with and serve alongside incredible people all around the globe, bringing even a message of spiritual formation to those who influence children so that they could give to the kids something that is being formed within them. You know, we often say you can't give someone something you don't already have. You can't lead someone somewhere you haven't already gone. It was hard to leave Kids at Heart, but we really did feel like God was putting this vision, a vision we've had for about 12, 13 years, on the front burner, and we could not resist it any longer. So we actually relaunched this ministry, something we began several years ago, and then actually kind of set aside when Kids at Heart came calling. We really felt like that was the vehicle for us to bring soul care to so many people in need. Anyway, here we are several years later. I left Kids at Heart and then moved into an executive director role for a wonderful ministry called Grafted Life. They're based out of Texas, and I loved my role there, working with Grafted Life and their resources and trying to bring resources to the church, as well as overseeing and kind of helping to lead what's called ESDA, a Christ-Centered Spiritual Directors Association, something I happen to be a part of. I'm a trained spiritual director and have been working in that role for about 5 years. I love that ministry. That makes up a lot of what I do and what a lot of our team does for LifePoint Resources. And it wasn't that long ago, just July of 2023, less than a year now, we actually felt God was saying, are you ready? Are you ready to really step fully into the vision that you've been exploring for so long? And are you ready to do this work of LifePoint Resources full time? And we said yes, stepping out in faith. I mentioned our ministry is a nonprofit. And so we have a lot of people who support this ministry so that everyone in need can receive soul care. We don't want to be just some kind of a boutique ministry for those who have the resources and the time and the money. We really are looking to be able to provide the kind of attention and companionship and care to those who need it, regardless of their ability to pay or, whatever their issues might be. In fact, we just got back, my wife and I, from a trip to Costa Rica. We were there a week ago, and we were ministering to about, over 50 national pastors, local pastors from there, ministry team leaders from churches, as well as those on the field as cross-cultural workers, missionaries, spouses, and it was an incredible time of ministry for them. Most of them could not necessarily come to the United States to receive this kind of care. We wanted to bring a retreat and bring a sense of rest to them and an opportunity for them to notice how their souls are doing and to just encourage them in their work that God sees them, God is with them, God is for them, God is delighting in them, and all they had to do, we just kept saying it over and over again, was receive. Just receive what God has for you in just these couple days so that you can reconnect to that voice who calls you the beloved son, beloved daughter. That's who you are before anything you do. I definitely talked to them about, Henry Nouwen's idea of identity, these 3 core questions or the senses of identity being you are what you do, you are what you have, and you are what others say about you. It was a great time with these leaders. Definitely sense that they were, in fact, refreshed. We're thankful to be able to receive and to delight and to taste and see that the Lord is good. That's the kind of ministry work LifePoint Resources is about. And we definitely didn't charge them for that kind of work. We wanted to be able to bless them, to be able to receive. Yes, I mentioned that this ministry vision goes back a long way. Rebecca and I can still recall some incredible years of ministry in Colorado Springs from 2009 to 2014, when God surrounded us with amazing friends and with a church family who recognized and called out within us gifts of deep listening. These gifts were forged through the fires of great struggle. And really, this is what helped us envision what God might one day build as a result. In addition to our church family and our friends, we were blessed to meet some folks at a place called the Potter's Inn. Steve and Gwen Smith and their team, my wife began to work for them back around 2010, actually 2009. And this was a soul care ministry up in the mountains outside of Colorado Springs. This was new for us largely. I had read and dabbled in some Dallas Willard and some Henry Nouwen and some other books that were getting me acquainted with the idea of spiritual formation as a pastor in ministry out in Arizona. But this was the place where we actually realized there was language around this. There was a movement around this. There were people practicing and engaging and helping other people find their way in what we talk about as spiritual formation. The Potter's Inn is very much a part of our own restoration, my wife and I, our marriage, our sense of ministry, our sense of calling, a sense of what is God going to do with us in our second half of life. And I owe so much to Steve Smith and to Gwen and to David Saxenmeyer and to some other folks who were attending lots of the soul care events up there, some of my very best friends to this day. A really new direction, in fact, for me in ministry. From the Potter's Inn, I had a sense of, I know what I want to do with the rest of my life. I feel like I was made to do this kind of work. And I began to proceed and pursue a master's degree in spiritual formation and leadership from Spring Arbor University. I was thrilled to find out this program was highly developed and created by Richard Foster, or at least with Richard Foster's insight. And so it really explored the 6 streams of Christian spirituality. I loved that program. From there, I felt a calling into spiritual direction as a means of soul care, of sitting with people and helping them listen to and respond to the voice of God, the voice of love in their life. I went through a program called Sustainable Faith out in Arizona. I owe very much of my heart for ministry in that to those who trained me. Danny Mullins and Janice Tarleton were my trainers for Sustainable Faith, and I loved that experience very much. So that's kind of some of my story, but I just want to go back a bit to some of that struggle I was mentioning. When we were in Colorado Springs and we were witnessing people, pastors, leaders, missionaries coming off the field, coming to this place where they were receiving generous hospitality and care. We wanted that, and we didn't realize at the time we both needed that in our own lives. A lot of healing and transformation needed to occur in both our lives. And our journey seemed like it zigzagged and it stalled all over the place, but with time, with patience and humility, with curiosity and willingness and perseverance, and a deep hunger for a loving union with God at the core of it all, we're finally noticing something beautiful taking shape. One of my favorite phrases, the title of a classic book by Eugene Peterson, is A Long Obedience in the Same Direction. A long obedience in the same direction. This is a description of a life aimed in one direction, a life aimed at God, and it's a fitting depiction of how God has been leading us all along. Like the twists and turns of a roller coaster, life has taken us on an exhilarating and sometimes jolting ride. But looking back, we can clearly see God's faithfulness, God's goodness, God's unrelenting love. It reminds me of David's words in Psalm 40. I have not hidden your saving help within my heart. I have spoken of your faithfulness and your salvation. I have not concealed your steadfast love and your faithfulness from the great congregation. If you want to know why we're giving ourselves fully to the ministry of soul care, it's because we want to be able to help others experience God's saving help and steadfast love like we did. We're not hiding it in our hearts. We're sharing it with anyone and everyone who has ears to hear. We want more and more people to experience the freedom and fullness of life the way God intends for all of us. And we want to help you, listener. We want to help you, friend, soul friend. We want to help your community of faith to be present to God's presence, God's witness in this present moment, so that we can all continue to grow together into people of love. Now, we don't know exactly where this long obedience will take us. We didn't know even back in July that we would be in Costa Rica here in March 2024. And we don't know what's next. We're holding this very open-handed. But we're already amazed to see how God's building our community. As of the recording of this podcast, episode number 1, We have a team, counting my wife and I and 7 other people, who have joined together to provide soul care under this umbrella of LifePoint. So we'd love to have you check out our website, lifepointresources.org. If you're looking for a spiritual director, our team consists of six spiritual directors, and we try to make it affordable, even at no cost, if that's what's needed and necessary. And we are supported, in doing so. So we just want to make sure the people who make up this team of soul care providers with LifePoint, they're not paid by LifePoint. They're not part of our staff. They just have the same heart that we have, and they don't want to do soul care ministry alone. So we have this fun forming group of people who all bring their own gifts. Some are incredible writers. Some are just incredible resourceful people who can create teaching curriculum. Others are great photographers. I mean, we're just trying to draw from the strengths of those who want to do ministry like this together. And so we'd love to have you check out what we're doing, check out some of our events. Even as a recording of this, we're in the midst of Lent. It's not too late if you haven't started doing anything for Lent or kind of working through some kind of a guide. We've created a free guide. It's on our website. One of our team members, Lynn Biskner, actually created that and did a phenomenal job. And there are people all over the world using that guide. So if that's something you're interested in, it's not too late. We'll continue to offer different retreats and different online seminars, handling a variety of topics. We'll consider anything that would help someone be with Jesus and become more and more a person of love. That's what we're about. So, yeah, we're excited to be fully stepping out in faith and building this ministry and to invite you into a community, a highly relational community, where you can be seen and heard and loved and companioned as well as possible. You deserve that. If you're a ministry leader and you're listening to this by chance and you've made it this far into my rambling, I just want you to know my heart is for you. I've been in ministry as an ordained pastor for many years, and I've suffered some of the brutality of that. And there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of blessing, but there's also a lot of hardship and a lot of loneliness, a lot of isolation, a lot of wondering, who am I if ... and kind of fill in the blank. So the journey I've been on, I feel like it's just been a saving and a redeeming and a restoring journey. And I want to walk with you if you'd allow me the privilege and the honor. We know that whatever God does in you through this ministry, it's not a direct result of our effort, but it's God who's doing the resourcing, God who's doing the relationship building, God who's doing the restoring in you. And we wouldn't want it any other way. So, friend, thank you. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Stick with us. We hope that you will come back to this podcast. I don't know how often we'll release episodes at this time. We're just getting started. And it's not always going to be just me talking. I do hope to invite folks on who can really enrich the conversation. So to bless you, that's what I'm here to do. That's what my wife and I both want to do. And if you're ever in Colorado, please look us up. Please contact us. Please email us. Use our website to figure out how to get a hold of us. Send us an email. Tell us you're coming to town. We would love to have you over for dinner. We'd love to let you stay at our home. We'd love to give you generous space to be with God in a beautiful place. We live north of the Denver area, but not too far from the mountains. You can see them, and you can certainly drive to them and be there within an hour. So all that just to say, I'm excited to actually get something new going here with this podcast. And I do hope that this will connect to you where you're at today on your journey with Jesus. So here we are. We want to be people who are being with Jesus and becoming people of love. Until next time, grace and peace.